good Sunday morning, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers who are watching, and we can have some mothers here too. Special day. We ought to make every day Mother's Day, I think, and honor our mothers. They're so important to our lives. But we're going to worship, and then we're going to look at the Word for a little bit, and then we're going to pray at the end. So we'll get us open with a word of prayer right now. Father, we thank you for today. We thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to worship together. We do want to thank you for our mothers, and I pray a special blessing on them today as well. So, Lord, may you be honored and glorified by all that's said and done. Amen.
For
song, there is something about that name, because at that name, every knee will bow. The knee of the atheist, the knee of Stalin, the knee of Hitler, the knee of everyone will bow and confess He is Lord. So, Father, we just want to get a jump on that and go ahead and confess it today ourselves. He is Lord. He's even Lord over this time of pandemic and all the uncertainties that come with that. So, Father, we just thank you. Thank you so much for the freedom to meet together, because some don't even have that freedom even in this country today. We thank you, Lord, for our mothers. Lord, may we honor them today the way you would want them to be honored. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, Mother's Day. We were talking at the beginning, and we was trying to figure out who with us still has a mother they can spend the day with. I know y'all do. Yours is gone. I know yours is gone. So I don't know about in the church how many still have their mothers around. Mine's gone. Mine died on Mother's Day weekend 2015. So that's always been strange. Kind of made Mother's Day kind of strange for me. When others were celebrating with Mom, I was planning a funeral. So, but that's life. You know, it's like I said at a funeral I had recently, you know, one day we all get our chance in that box up at the front of the room. And so you better make sure that what you live is a life that you are going to be proud of when you stand before the Lord. Because that's going to be a bad time to lower your head. But anyway, we're not here to talk about funeral stuff. We're here to talk about good stuff. We're here to talk about mothers. So what I'm going to do today is, first of all, I'm going to talk about how important mothers are. If you think in the Bible, some of the famous mothers that had, or some of the mothers that had a huge impact on people who became heroes of the faith or whatever. So who's some mothers you can think of in Scripture? How about the mother of Moses? The Bible doesn't say a lot about her, but she was the one who instilled in him the word, the traditions of Judaism, and instilled in him this idea that there was a deliverer coming. So you have her, you have Samuel's mother. Remember who promised, God, if you'll just give me a child, I'll give him back to you. And God did, and she did. Can you think any more? Sarah, okay. Elizabeth? Mary, yeah. The big mother, Mary herself, yeah. Which is kind of ironic with all the stories of these different mothers. She's the only one they really follow, you know, pretty well into her life. I guess, do we lose track of her after the cross? I can't remember if she pops up after that or not. But I know at the cross, the occasion when Jesus told John, here's your mother now. Take care of her. And history, legend, whatever you want to call it, says he did. That he moved her into his house and basically adopted her as his mother, took care of her. Can you think any others? Can you think any mothers who might have been a little disappointed with the children they raised? How about Samson's mother? Oh boy. To have had so much prospect and he blew it all. Can you think anyone else? We're about to exhaust our mothers here. Well, what about since then? I thought just a minute ago over there, I thought about John Newton, the writer of Amazing Grace, who was raised by a Puritan mother, and his father was a heathen from the word go. His father was never there. He was basically, he wasn't in the Navy, but he was like a merchant marine type guy. And she instilled in John, little John, the Bible. And she taught him the Bible every day. Unfortunately, she died when he was a young boy. And so John ended up being passed around by relatives. And finally, his dad took him to sea with him when he was 12. And John grew up on the ocean. And then when John got old enough to fend for himself, if you read the biography, it's quite a tale of the things he went through. I mean, he was traded one time for slaves on one ship he was on. He was flogged. He was abandoned. He was left on islands. I mean, all kinds of wild stuff happened to him. But it was in one of those situations where it looked like the end was near that his mother's words came back to him. And he thought about all those times his mother told him the gospel story. And that was what brought him to Christ. And he went on to be a writer of Amazing Grace, as well as a successful pastor. Well, so what are we looking at today? Proverbs 31, every woman's favorite chapter in the Bible. Oh, they just love this one. Proverbs 31. And I'm not going to beat you up with it. So what I'm going to do is just jump all that beaten up stuff and just jump down to verse 28. Proverbs 31, verse 28. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many daughters have done well, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is passing. But a woman who fears the Lord, she will be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. Now, every year, Salary.com does a little thing, mostly kind of tongue-in-cheek, where they figure out what a mom is worth. And they base that on all the jobs a mom does. And so if you look at the actual article, it's like this long of all the jobs mom does. And so they figured out all the salaries that somebody who does these jobs would make. And for 2019, a mom was worth $178,201. So moms, go to your husband and say, I'll take that in cash, please. So that was actually, they gave you a little bump, rising $15,620 from 2018. So you got a nice little pay increase. But they do that every year, and like I said, it's just kind of fun to play with. The Lord's speaking. He's calling in. All right, so I wanted us to look at this issue of mothers from the perspective of who we are. Okay, so as a church, we don't have a lot of young mothers here. Therefore, talking about how to raise kids is not going to be relevant to where most of us are. Okay, most of the mothers are here. But where most of our mothers are kind of on the other end of the spectrum. They're up towards the empty nest or beyond. And so what I wanted to do was just focus on that a little bit, because sometimes that part of it gets left out, because we like to focus on, churches do, on the mother, who's the youngest mother, who's got the most youngins, and we're going to help you today 3 ways to not choke them, 5 ways to, to make them successful, and all this other kind of stuff. Well, what about when you get to the empty nest and that last one is gone and Mark is clapping? But mom doesn't always clap about that, because that can be a very distressing thing for mom to go through, watching her children leave home, especially if her identity has been tied up in raising kids. And now they're gone, and mom says, now what? And when that happens, basically around that time, or maybe a little later, they get into what developmentalist Eric Erickson called the stage of generativity versus stagnation. Well, that's two big words. Basically what that means is between, he said, roughly the ages of 45 to 65, this can be a time of anxiety and depression, especially for mothers who are experiencing empty nest if they've lived their life for their children. And in fact, one of the highest points in a marriage where there's a divorce is at this time, because the kids leave home. Mom and dad really haven't worked on a marriage in a long time, and when the last kid walks out, they look at each other and say, who are you, and why am I here with you? I don't even like you that well. You know, we were just kind of staying together for the kids, and kids are gone now, so I guess I'm gone too. See you later. And that was one of the high points when a lot of people get divorced. So this stage, generativity versus stagnation, what does that mean? Well, generativity means making your mark on the world. Okay, so has my life made a difference? Stagnation means it refers to the failure to find a way to make a mark in the world. So it brings us to the question, will my life make a difference? And that's the question everyone answers. Men and women answer that question during this period of time. But I think mothers especially are confronted with this. Like I said, when the kids are gone, if they basically live their life for the kids are gone now. Now what? What am I going to do? So will my life make a difference? Dr. Susan Hoeksama, that's a big name, in her article, Could Aging Be Good for Women? This is an article in Psychology Today, proposes that many men find this stage of life to be fulfilling by relying upon the inner strength or resilience they developed early in life to overcome problems that arise due to remaining engaged in life and meaningful relationships. In other words, she said the research is in, and what makes the difference for these mothers when they go through this period is their inner strength, which we would call their spiritual life. Now, she doesn't call it that. She calls it their ability to be resilient and their experience overcoming obstacles and stuff like that. But as believers, we have that added component of a relationship with God that hopefully we've developed. It's that, and the second thing that will lead to a fulfilling life during this period of time is remaining engaged in life and in relationships with people. So with those two things in mind, let's look at the verse we're going to focus on today, which was verse 30. Charm is deceitful and beauty is passing, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Now, when you look at that, you know, we live in a culture today that prizes or values physical beauty. And people will go sometimes, women especially, will go to any length necessary to try to stop the hands of time. And they want to look like they did when they were 18, which is kind of interesting when they're 49, and they still want to look like they did when they were 18. In fact, in 2018, because what often happens when someone is into this and they feel like all that really matters is how I look on the outside, the plastic surgeon is going to get a lot of money. And in fact, in 2018, $16.5 billion was spent in plastic surgery. What was the least expensive surgical procedures that were done? Liposuction. Well, that's the one I need. In 2018, there were 258,558 procedures, liposuction procedures. The next one was eyelid surgery. Now, I don't really, what is eyelid surgery? They cut your eyelids off, or they get the bags off? Oh, okay. There were 206,529 of these procedures at a whopping fee of $3,156. Well, Facelifts. There were 121,531 of these, and the average surgeon charged $7,655. Tummy tuck. There were 130,081 of these procedures, and the national average fee was $6,253. Nose reshaping. 213,780 of these procedures, and the national average fee was $5,350. Now, there is if something's happened, someone's been in an accident or whatever, there's a time and place for cosmetic surgery. But this is elective procedures. Why? I want to stay young. Why? Because this is what matters most. It's what's on the outside. And here's the problem with that. You're going to lose that battle. I mean, you can go to the plastic surgeon every year and get something pulled up or taken out or put in or whatever you do to it. Eventually, that runs out. Eventually, we all know people who have been to the plastic surgeon one time too many. And when people see them, they say, somebody just had some work done. Because all that matters is out here. But see, that's the wrong answer. If you're trying to answer that question, will my life matter? You got to go on the inside. And where do we go? Well, remember the two things. You have to have that inner strength, which we're calling having a relationship with God. And number two, you have to remain engaged in life and in meaningful relationships. So let's look at that real quick. Number one, this is the right way to answer that question. Number one, focus on being attractive. Now, you may say, now wait a minute. That means just focus on the outside. No. In fact, the outside does not make people attractive. It's what's on the inside that makes people attractive. I found a poll that was done in Elle magazine, E-L-L-E magazine. And they asked a group of men, what traits do you see in women that you believe makes them beautiful or attractive instead of hot? I'm getting hot in here now, but it's not because I'm hungry. What traits do you look for? Listen to this. First of all, her passions define her more than her looks. She's honest. She's humble. She's self-confident. She's a confidant. She's compassionate. She has character. And there's something unique and special about her. That's what makes them attractive. Not how they look on the outside. Now, when we focus on being attractive, if we're looking at verse, do we see it there? Yes, it says, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. You see, the key to attractiveness is the fear of the Lord. In the Old Testament, the fear of the Lord doesn't mean to be afraid of something. The fear of the Lord means to live in a reverent way, or we would say, to live according to the ways of God. So does that transcend into the New Testament? Yes, it does. In 1 Peter 3, verses 3 through 6, it says, wives, likewise be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, they, without a word, without nagging, may be won by the conduct, the word for conduct means behavior or lifestyle of their wives. So nagging won't do it. What will do it is when he sees something in their life that they can't explain, but they find very attractive, and they say, wow, I want that. You know, it's kind of like, I sent out a little email today that I made a comment about the games on the show Fixer Up. And the fact that the wife on the show, and him too to some extent, but especially her, where she goes, there's peace. And when she walks into a situation, peace goes with her. And people could tell that. People could sense that. Even watching it on television, and probably most of them didn't understand what it was. But it was just a peace. You know what? That's attractive. And that's why everybody tried to get her on their show. Because when she would show up, there would be peace going with her. Well, see, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about that conduct that wins people, even without her saying a word. People want to be around her because I don't understand it, but everywhere you go, there's peace. Well, so he goes on to say, when they observe your chaste or holy conduct, accompanied by fear. Again, that fear means reverence, not being afraid of something. Verse 3, do not let your adornment be merely outward. Now, I want to say, we don't need to overlook the word merely. And I say that because there's some groups who overlook the word merely, and they say, well, that means women shouldn't wear makeup. No, it's not what he said. He said, don't let your adornment be merely outward. In other words, part of their adornment was going to come from in here. Part of their attractiveness, their beauty is going to come from in here. In fact, most of it's going to come from in here. Rather, let it be the hidden person of the heart with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God. So the first thing in answering that question, will my life matter? Is yes, it can if you're living an attractive life. If you're living according to the ways of God. If you're living like Peter said to live here. Second one was to remain engaged in life and with people. That's Titus 2, verses 3 through 5. Older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine, little wine, yard mother afterwards. They are to teach what is good, and so train the young women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled, pure, working at home, kind and submissive to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be reviled. And in fact, he goes on to say that the older women are to teach the younger women. In other words, remain engaged in life and invested in relationships with other people. So if you're watching today, or if you're here and you're kind of at this point where you've moved into this stage of life where you're looking back and you're seeing probably there's more road behind you than there is in front of you, and you start asking these questions: has my life mattered? Have I made a difference? Is there any way I can make a difference and really feel like I've accomplished something? The answer is yes. Now, it may not be that you can do it in your kids if your kids are grown. That's pretty much settled. You might do it in grandkids. In fact, grandparents are a great influence on their grandkids. But it may be someone else you know. There might be a young mother out there that's struggling because she has no clue what to do. And she's got a baby or 2 or 3 or 4 or however many she's got. And she is just overwhelmed completely. And you have some wisdom to share with her and to invest with her. Invest in that. Remain engaged in life. You see, one of the big mistakes people make, both men and women, is when they get to this point in life, they retire. Not from their job, but from life. And they kind of get into this routine of, I get up, go to work, go home, go to bed. Get up, go to work, go home, go to bed. And it's just about me. And if all we do is live for me, you're never going to be a person who makes a difference. So if you want to be a person who makes a difference, the 2 things to keep in mind. 1, you've got to have that relationship with God. The intimate, personal relationship with God. You have to maintain fellowship with God. Two, you've got to remain engaged in life and in the lives of people. Because I promise you, there's somebody who needs what you have. And if you'll do that, you'll find that just as this psychologist found, life will start to have some meaning. If you don't, if you just do what you want to do, you won't find meaning. In fact, if anything, you'll just keep looking for it. And everything you try, nothing will work. Because we weren't designed to be that way. So today I want to say thank you to the moms who are here. Thank you to my mom. Thank you to my wife, who's not here, but she's been a good mom. Glad to see my oldest daughter be a good mom. And I just want to encourage you today, if you're kind of in this stage of life where it's the empty nest, don't fall victim to despair. You still got a purpose. God's still got something for you to do. And it's not to retire on life. It's to engage. Father, I thank you for today. I thank you, Lord, for our mothers. I just pray a special blessing on them today. And Lord, help us all to remember, and I know many of us are getting older, help us all to remember as we move into these different stages of life that life, you don't have a retirement plan. Your retirement plan is death. Help us to remember that the life we're looking for, the meaning and purpose in life we're looking for, is only found through maintaining an intimate relationship with you and by remaining engaged in life and in meaningful relationships. Help us, Lord, not to get our eyes off the prize. Help us to see, Lord, that you've given us everything we need to have an impact and have an effect on people. And to do as Eric Erickson said, to make a mark on history. And Lord, may it be so today, I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, blessings on you, and hopefully we'll be back meeting together soon.